Right, well, I think it's time to play with video number 2 in this Gilded Autumn Suite lily pad stamp club. Right, I saw this technique the other day and I thought that would be a nice one to have a go at with our lily pad stamp club technique class. So I've got the inks that match this suite. So I've got Occasion Craze, Crumb Cake, Early Espresso, Croaky Voice and Mint Macaron. Croaky Voice is not a necessary ingredient for this card. I've got a piece of very vanilla cardstock here, which is one of the colours in the suite, and that I've actually cut it at inches. It's actually a 4-inch square. If you wanted to go metric on that, probably about 10 centimetres. Yeah, 10 and a half centimetres, something like that. I've also cut a piece of Early Espresso, and that is actually is that 4? It's 4.5. Let's scrap that bit, shall we? It's not 4 inches. I thought that seemed small. It's 4.5 inches. So I would go with 11.5 centimetres for that. And then the Early Espresso is 4 3/4, so you could go with a 12 centimetre for that. And then I've cut a piece of Crumb Cake cardstock, and I've cut it at 10 inches long by 5, scored at 5 to make a 5-inch square card. You could make that a 12.5 centimetre square card by cutting it 12.5 by 25. So there we are, inches and metric. I will add those to the description so that you know what they are. Let me write that on a little post-it note to say, add measurements to description. I promise that's what that says, although it's very scribbled. I shall be able to decipher that when it comes to it. So let's take our piece of very vanilla cardstock just here, and we'll put aside our mat and our card base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open these up, and for each one of these I've got a dauber, or you could have a piece of sponge or whatever it is that you want to use. Oh, I think my Stamping Up New Year's resolution will be to make sure I've got all new ink pads and all the ink refills. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to take, so this is WH Smith Club card. They don't do them anymore, which is why I'm now using it for crafting. So I've just got, and it could be any old credit card, or you could just cut yourself a rectangle of card or acetate, offcut of laminate, or whatever it is that you want to use. But what we want is this straight line. We want something as a straight line, and I think I'm going to start with the Mint Macaron, because that's one of the two paler colours. So we'll start with that, and all we're going to do is we're going to sponge down here and create a bit of a line just down there, and then we'll bring this across here. It doesn't matter where you go, you can take your lines where you like, and the idea will be we can fade that out a little bit, that eventually what it might be an idea to do is just get a little bit of scrap paper or some such. I have plenty. I'm just going to dab that off a bit so that you don't get quite such a, sort of just tones it down, takes that original blob of ink off of it, and you can just build that up and blend it out as much as you like on those corners, as I say, and there's no hard and fast rules as to where you go with it. And you can decide at a later date to go back with any one of your colours. Just going to come in here, I think. Right, I'm going to swap my mint macaron for my crumb cake. So let's just again dab that off, and then we'll decide where we're going to go in with that one. And where the colours meet, that will blend a bit and produce another colour again. Actually move that over there and bring that all the way down to this edge. Take it across that line just there. And we'll have a, let's do the same coming down here. Say you can bring that out a little bit, it doesn't have to be just using that straight edge. Let's come in with Cajun Craze now. Just bringing that out a little bit from that edge so you can fade it out, make it as wide or as narrow as you like. I didn't dab that one. You can see how that makes a difference when you don't dab it. Obviously you have to be quite careful because then you've got ink coming on your edge of your card as well. So now I'm going to pick up the Early Espresso. I'm going to be fairly gentle with that. Building up that colour quite gradually so it's not, because it is a very dark colour. just now trying to fill in, because your idea is that you want to sort of pretty well fill in all the white in the background, not necessarily as a solid fill, but just so that there's, if we come down here, you can always decide to go back in with one of the other colours if we want to. I think what I might do now is, I think I'm going to take the crumb cake one and I'm going to blob it off, and then I'm just going to very gently tickle over the top so it just sort of blends that all in and fills in those gaps a little. And you can see where that just tones it down from being a... The very vanilla is fairly toned down anyway, more toned down than if you'd have been doing this on white cardstock. But it does just... around the edge there, I might come in a bit stronger with that crumb cake. Just give it a bit of a shaded border. Pick up any places that I think could do with picking up. So then we're going to bring in a circle, and what I've done is I've just punched a piece of I've just used my 2 1/4 inch circle punch to punch a piece of plastic. Again, you could do this with a piece of cardstock, anything, a bit of scrap card, anything that you've got lying around, and you don't need to use a punch. You could use a die, or all else fails, draw around something circular, because all we're going to do then is, using this darker colour, just going to shade around the edge of that circle. And what that does is that just breaks up those lines a little bit. And the lady that I saw did do this, she'd actually she'd done a couple of different ones, but she'd done one with lots of different shades of blues and things, and she'd then used it for the Whale of a Time suite. So if you've done the Whale of a Time, if you've got those products, that's another idea for using this, and it just sort of gives the effect, particularly the blues, of a prism of light. But that's just a really pretty, isn't that lovely, that background. So you've got that background then in all those colours. Do I want another little bit of a circle coming round there? And it's amazing what difference putting in the circles is. It just sort of breaks up the lines, just makes the eye go, woo, what's going on there? So that's our background, which we are going to have on our card base like that. Now let's find, ooh, let's find our stamp set. That would be good, wouldn't it? There we go. think I'm going to take this big leaf stamp just here. And it also has a centre bit to go in it. So let's start with that. And let's bring out the, oh no, early espresso, because we want to go, need it to be nice and dark on the background here. I'm going to bring in my foam mat because we are with a photopolymer stamp. Oh, no wonder that came funny. I'd put both stamps on together. Let's see if we can overlay. Luckily I'd got it on the right way. Right, I'm going to bring in our little stamp. My scrap paper again, so I'm going to ink that up with early espresso. I am actually going to stamp it off once, so although that one hasn't been stamped off, we will work on doing something with that one. And let's just, so yes, don't put both stamps up on once because you end up with a bit of a mess on your project, which you don't want. What I will actually do on mine that you won't need to do on yours necessarily is I'm going to find a little piece of scrap berry vanilla. You only need to do this if you make a boo-boo or if you want to. Let's just take a little bit of berry vanilla. Just going to need the end leaf bit, and then we'll stamp that off and put the so here's the redeeming the boo-boo, and we all sometimes need ways of redeeming the boo-boo. You might decide you want to do this anyway because it will obviously, I shall put that on, we shall make a feature of it. We don't just redeem the boo-boo, you make a feature of the boo-boo. We'll put some dimensionals under that. I've got very yucky fingers. There, baby, what? I haven't wet my Simply Chamois. Right. And let's just pick up a couple of little dimensionals for under here. In fact, I think possibly one will be enough. And we'll have that lifted up just there, and then we'll cut out our other little leaf when we can find it. Where have you gone? There you are. And I think we're going to need to chop that little dimensional in half because it is just a thin leaf. So we'll just put half a mini dimensional on the back of there. And then we'll put that one in place just here. So the fact that it's now got shading underneath, that's fine. There we go. Now I'll make the stamp set again. I think I might put in a few little pine cones as well. So we'll do the same. We'll take the detailed pine cone stamp and we'll stamp that again in early espresso, just because not doing very well, are we, ladies? Just because that's going to be a bit more, it's going to stand out on that solid background. Just putting some of those tucking in around this edge. Have a second one coming in there. So then I'm going to do exactly the same, and I'm going to take the inner piece of the early espresso. Get my scrap paper ready because we will stamp off, stamp on, and just fill that centerpiece in. Now I'm going to find a little piece of crumb cake card. And this is the "My Heart is Grateful for You" greeting stamp. You just clear up that block and clear up that stamp. And to trim that up a bit, let me just cut it off here. I'm going to trim that. It's about 1 1/4 inches, just over 3 centimeters, 3.2. Trim that a little bit on that edge. And a little bit more. I think I'm going to take it down to there. Take our snips. And let's do a banner end. Obviously you can grab the banner end punches if you've got one. that would be quite nice popped up onto some early espresso just to make that pop out. So let's grab a piece of early espresso. We'll just pop that on there, and either you can take your trimmer or scissors or whatever works best for you and just trim that round. Let's take my snips and get that bit. That wasn't that's better. Now I'm going to take this little stamp. Obviously you build yours up as much or as little as you like. I'm just very aware that I've got extra little blobby bits on there which I don't really want on there, so I'm going to take this little leaf stamp . Note to self, when this video is finished, go and clean up your photopolymer stamps. They must have some glitter and things on, so I'm going to stamp it off and just do a few little leaves and things in the background. Right, so I'm going to take my dimensionals and I'm going to raise up my greetings banner. I seem to have managed to make a little mess of my hands. Let's just wipe some of the excess ink off of that so I'm not transferring it. Take this metallic ribbon, I think, and I'm going to make a big bow with it. Because I want it coming out from behind my greeting banner. down here a little bit, that's sticky, because what I'm going to do is just pop a couple of glue dots on there and use those to attach that bow, and then we'll take the backs all off of those. Yep, we can take that, stick that on there, trim this down a little bit. I quite like the way that this ribbon sort of curls and does its own thing. So let's put some glue on the back of there and stick that to our early espresso mat. And then we'll take that and stick that to our crumb cake card base. When it comes to your inside mat, you would get away with just you could write on a crumb cake mat. That's not necessarily a problem. It's not too dark for you to write on, but you might like a very vanilla mat inside as well. So let's cut a 4 3/4 inch, or you could go down to 4.5, but we'll make that 4 3/4 inch mat for the inside. And then I think on that, which stamp shall we have? I think I'll go back to the leaves. And we'll just have a few little leaves. Let's take our small stamp, let's fill in those centerpieces. Now I've got everything scattered everywhere, haven't I? Let's pop the lid on some of these inks, and then I can stack those up out of the way and give ourselves a tiny smidge more room. I'll fight that one in a minute. This is where, okay, where's that little stamp gone? Here it is. Okay, let's just add in a couple of little pine cones and some glue on that. Obviously you could, in fact, let's have Life is Better with You. Let's have that bit on the inside. We'll add some glue to that and pop that inside there. So there we go. We started off creating that background with that sort of prism effect going on. We've done some over stamping, added a greeting and a bit of a bow, and then an insert. So I hope you've liked that technique and you'll give that a go, and perhaps give it a go with different colours. It would look quite pretty in pinks and lilacs, wouldn't it, if you were doing sort of a floral image. But yeah, quite a pretty little technique, so do give that a go. And I'll be back and see you again very shortly.